Good afternoon, good evening, good zinta, good y'all, whatever it may be where you are. I'm not Sports Cards. Hope you're doing well. Remember to like and subscribe. Smaller channels like me, we really appreciate it if you like, subscribe, or comment. Today I'm talking about it's kind of taken over all of the non-sports and regular sports card people talking about the biggest sale, I think, in mainstream non-sports cards history. I guess I could qualify. Actual non-sports, not TCG. $268,400 for Luke Skywalker. Now, I'm going to tell you things today you're not going to hear from anybody else. I'm going to put this in context with data and go through the previous sales, because what card I have up here from Card Letter here shows how does a card go from $300 in 2015 to $268,000 in 2025. And I've been a Star Wars collector for about 5 years now, so I'm certainly not the guy who's been around forever, but I've been around through kind of this whole uptick here. Like from right before the pandemic, we saw a sale for around $7,000. I think that might even have been a private sale. And then we had sales, I think a sale of $55,000, a sale of $63,000, a sale of $78,000, and then we go to $286,000. So I'm going to explain why this card went for as much as it did, why it hadn't gone for this price previously, and then I'm going to give you some context of how the Luke compares from a pop count and value to other iconic cards. Because to me, this is the most iconic non-sports card, and I think that people are learning that they want to maybe have some exposure to this. If you own a large collection of sports cards or non-sports cards, you're like, hey, I kind of want to have one of these in my collection. So, all right, so let's just hop right in. Okay, so I can't get to the $55,000 sale right here, which was in 2021. So during the pandemic, obviously, all cards went nuts, and that's kind of where Star Wars cards picked up and went crazy. Star Wars cards have been around since 1977. They're still making them today. But this is obviously the mother of all sets. And to give you context, this is a Pop 9. There are only 89 nines and like 300 something eights. Also, I'll go into the idea of I have data of, like, I looked at the actual pop count of Luke's in early 2021 compared to where they are today. So to give you an idea, there were only 627 Lukes graded in this was February 17th, 2021. So almost 5 years ago. There are only 600 Lukes graded. And if we go now, hopefully, 77 Star Wars. I thought all these tabs had loaded. We now have the number's like around 4,500. Now, there are 9 10s. There were 9 10s in February of 2021. So we graded 600% more cards, and there were no new 10s. And there were 18 new 9s. But that's still not a lot. Like obviously the gem rate went down. So that gives you some context of essentially how rare this card is and how it's really going to. You can't say there'll never be another one. There are some boxes open, but I've seen boxes opened, and they often come out 6s and 7s. They rarely even come out 8s or 9s. All right, so this first sale that was over here was an eBay sale. This was when I got in hot and heavy in February of 2021. That's when I really jumped in, and like FOMO hit me. This is the height of the card, the card market explosion, and I'm like, I want all these cards, and I got caught up in it, and like I wanted to buy one of these Lukes. I actually had some friends and stuff. We were putting money together to buy different cards, and you couldn't find one. I think somebody put one for sale on what was PWCC at the time, or Fanatics Select. I don't even think they did it at the time. I think eventually one came up for sale for either $1 million or $2 million. And at that time, the previous sale was $7,000. I thought the card was probably worth about $100,000 at that time, given what the other cards were going for. Like at that point, there were very few PSA 9s for sale. If you bought one, it was probably like 14, 15,000. 8s were going for 5K. 7s were going for like 1,500, 2,000. It was out of control because you couldn't grade. But so this card pops up on eBay, $55,000. I looked into it. I was somewhat new to the big type of card stuff. And, at that time, eBay has no authenticity, right? There's no, like, it doesn't go to anywhere to say it's real. This person did not have a lot of feedback, a lot of history, just some random guy. You would have had to just sit him $55,000 to buy the card. I didn't know enough to figure out how to make it right. And I think other people were kind of scared off by it. It wasn't at a Golden. It wasn't at a Heritage. It wasn't at a Fanatics. It was just some guy on eBay, and you were just going to have to send him $55,000 and cross your fingers and hope it was a real thing. Obviously, eBay's in the middle, but like again, there so many of the guardrails that we have in place today were not in place at that time. It was also after the market had gone straight up and kind of come down. It was towards, I believe, the end of 2021. So it was like, okay, it was still a good price. I know I believed in it, but like if it had been whatever, a 4 sharp corners, a probes teen, something like that, I could have seen myself trying to at least buy it. But it wasn't an auction. It was a buy it now. I don't know how quick it sold. If I remember, it went pretty quickly. I didn't have much time to think about it, but that was how we got from 7,000 to 55,000, which was huge influx of people into cards. Cards go nuts, and there are none of these for sale, right? There was an auction where like a number 4 came up for auction. There were a few, which is the Han Solo rookie. There were some Princess Leia PSA 10s, but for the most part, you couldn't even find 10s of anything because the pop count on this stuff, if you look totals, there are 9 Lukes, there's 11 Han Solos, there's 15 Leias, 16 Kenobis, there are only 5 Vaders, 24 R2-D2s. So again, that takes us to this time in 2023. And I was heavily involved at this point. I've been doing content on Star Wars for years with a lean towards vintage. I'm very much a rookie non-sports collector, which is a weird thing because some purists in non-sports don't believe there's such thing as a rookie. I think there is, and this $268,000 sale kind of proves that, but that's a different topic for a different day. Anyway, so we get in there, and I know that there's this Heritage auction coming up. I had actually made a bid on a different Han Solo card to somebody who had one on eBay, and we messaged back and forth as known as T-Rex Sports. He and I did an interview, which I posted years ago, and I'm going to try to dig it up because he had almost a complete 1977 Series 1 set and most of the rest of the other 4 sets because there are 5 total set series in this, but Series 1 is considered by far and away the most valuable. And he was putting it up for sale at Heritage. And we'd never seen a Luke auction. And it was coming up. He had a Luke. He had, I think, honestly, the only card he didn't have was the number 63, May the Force be with you, which is Pop 4 rare. But he had a Darth Vader, which is Pop 5. Hadn't seen that come up. And I'm going to show you that auction in a second. But come to find out, have you guys ever heard of a company called Robert Edwards Auctions? I had never heard of them. I still never hear people talk about them now. And I mean no disrespect. I come from whatever place of like eBay is most of what I know. I know Golden. I knew PWC. I knew some places like that. I never heard of Robert Edwards Auction. And like a week or so before the Heritage auction, somebody's like, a Luke 77 sold for $63,000. And it did. It sold just a few months before on Robert Edwards Auctions. I don't know if this is hammer price. I don't know if there were a premium on it. I just know that of all the people that I know in the Star Wars community, and I'm not saying I know everybody, I just have a decent number of friends who have friends, nobody knew that this was happening. And so we you know, not that I was in the spot where I was going to buy this card, but there are other cards, which I'm going to show you in a second. So this was a very poorly publicized card sale, and it sells for $63,000 to basically no one. And that's what happened. You can see also there was at the same time somebody auctioned off like a near set, 262 out of the 330 cards that went for $63,000. So there were 149 gem mint cards and what's the number on the PS, and 113 knots. But this was crazy because if we look at the picture share, like this Han Solo just sold for $20,000. This card over here sold for $5,000. This card sold for $4,000. This card sold for I think $6,000. So the Grand Moff Tarkin sold this weekend for $20,000. So like even if you did the simple math of like $500 per card for the 150 cards, you get to $75,000, which is more than, and that's kind of like bottom rung of the ladder for a Star Wars card. I mean, Series 1, you really don't get anything below $500, and obviously some of these go for much more. So this was I'm using this to show you the idea. This was a horribly publicized auction. This is something that I think a few of my friends and I would have gotten together and tried to buy, because it's kind of, and this, a lot of this ended up getting auctioned off and piecemealed on 4Sharp Corners. It just was simple. It's like the math was too easy here to be able to go, okay, I can sell all these cards for X and Y, and like it was kind of an easy sale. So clearly it was just a poorly publicized auction that nobody knew about, and or at least a large part of the Star Wars buying public did not know. I don't know what that's supposed to be. All right. So the other thing I wanted to show is this. As I was going through there, they had an auction that was from the fall of 2020, and it was like just to show for $22,000 somebody bought. And the funny part is the estimate was $5,000 and it went for $22,000. But this didn't have any. It had 111 gem mint cards and 173, including a Luke PSA 9, which, as I said, currently approximately sells for between $10,000 and $20,000 after this recent sale. One was posted on eBay the other day for $7,700 and was gone in 10 seconds. So good luck. Happy for the person who bought that. Sad for the person I know who tried to negotiate it down to $7,000. So we have the first sale for $55,000, which is to a random guy on eBay with no authentication, no background, no history, like 2 pictures, and it just was hard to get there for most people to feel comfortable, and it wasn't publicized at all. And it was a buy it now. It wasn't even an auction. So it wasn't even an auction. And then we have this one here that goes for $63,000 in a poorly publicized auction. And then we get to Heritage. This is the sale from November of 2023. So it's been almost 2 years since we've seen any of these for sale. So if you're trying to figure out, part of the reason why we got here is that they don't come for sale. There are 9 of them. Most of these are tied up in PSA registry sets. It's very competitive. The PSA set registry for this. Actually, this one that came up was because the guy who owned it, Robert Partisans, told me he was so fed up of losing and he couldn't beat the #1 set that he was moving to the foreign versions of the set, and he was just getting out and also obviously taking a profit. But okay, so this sells for $78,000. That's, practically a quarter of what the one recently sold for. This auction was handled horribly. I mean, seriously, like if I were, and he was at the time, I spoke to Robert after the fact. He was happy with what he ended up for the total auction, but he was not happy what certain things went for. What had happened was, like, so if you've participated in these auctions before or you haven't, what happens normally is there's a bidding time. Like it all goes up until 8 o'clock tonight. And at 8 o'clock tonight, anybody who has bid on an item can now enters extended bidding. And for the auction for this one here for $86,000, which went $68,000 the other night, was when we hit extended bidding, it was at about $80,000. And the way its extended bidding worked was if you placed a bid, it reset for 30 minutes, and the person had 30 minutes to kind of go up. So this went on for, I don't know, 3 or 4 hours after the fact. And that allowed it. And that is how, so all the cards that were for sale had this happen. They were all at the same time, but like basically you had a half hour. If you placed a bid, and then it would reset, half hour, half hour. The Princess Leia went for a long time as well. What happened in this auction here was, let's say it stopped at 8 o'clock. Extended bidding started at 8:05. And they did one card at a time with 5 minutes, and it would reset to, I think, a minute or 2 minutes if somebody did a bid. And you know what card they started with? This card. This was the first card. Nobody knew what was going on. Nobody knew what was happening. Nobody knew how the actual auction functioned, and it was gone. They did it in card number. The Darth Vader went whatever, it was like the 5th or 6th card to go. Same thing. People didn't know that they didn't have this much time. How do I, like, you're like, okay, that's your theory. If you watch this auction, which I did a live stream of it, the end of the auction, prices were going nuts because people actually were there. They didn't think they had to be there. So people missed the biggest cards of the auction because they were on this short thing. So there was the normal function of an auction did not take place. And this card was the very first card. So you had to learn on the fly when the most valuable card was up for auction. It doesn't, so it was this kind of muffed auction attempt. Now, the other thing that I'll say is that this was a tone setter, meaning and that's kind of what happened the other night with the Luke, which is when it went for 268. When it went for that much, it kind of brought everything with it. And I think this was the barometer at which the rest of the auction was gauged. I believe that had gone for its true price of 100. I think would have been around 100, 125. It would have just pulled everything up a little bit. And okay, so we get to the end of this. $78,000 is still a crazy thing to go from $7,000 to $55,000. And the other thing I'll say is, the card market's not in a wonderful place at this time. It's in an okay place. With Star Wars specifically, there had been a glut of inventory on the market. The same person who sold this actually graded like 2,000 cards, and he was just selling everything. And so we had some market saturation at the time. So, but that's kind of just of what was going on. So, okay. Then the next thing happens. Who bought these cards? Okay, so the biggest cards that were bought were this Luke, the Luke sticker, which is even rarer, but not as sought after. This is the only Luke sticker PSA 10. Pop 1. Only went for $57,000. Actually, the seller thought this would go for way higher than the other one. It just people, it's like the Michael Jordan sticker, that it's just not as sought after. And then we had the Vader here. And then we have like a Princess Leia, that it was the same thing. But because of what the original card sold for, they kind of were what they were. But a few days later, I'm on Instagram, and I see somebody opening boxes, showing off they purchased them. It's the DJ Steve Aoki. If people know who he is or you don't, he's very big in the card hobby, very big in the collectible hobby. And if you could go back and watch it, he was genuinely excited about acquiring these cards, and he should be. I mean, these are like, he got these cards which are literally pop ones. He got the Luke Skywalker, which, as we've seen, is like they come up for auction every couple of years. I don't think I don't know if we're going to see another one anytime soon. I've been told, I haven't looked yet. Somebody told me that there is one up on I think Fanatics Collect or PW, whatever it is. and they have a very reasonable asking price of 7.5 million. I'm pretty sure this is the same one that eventually surfaced for $1 million around this time. So I think that person is like, they don't really want to sell. And I know that feeling, but they're like, hey, if somebody ever wants to meet a crazy number, we'll do it. But just again, the idea that they're not really going to come up for sale. So you have a bad eBay listing, a poorly marketed auction. Then you have a horribly executed auction, and then we go to a celebrity showing off that they bought these cards, and then you don't see one for sale for years. That's what happened. And the Star Wars market, the vintage market, was kind of up and down over time. There are lots of these cards are old, and there's a little bit of is the grading entirely accurate? And you can kind of see that like certain 10s don't always look like 10s. Like this card sold the other night, and it didn't quite look like a 10. There's some registry issues on here, but so there have always been some questions about how great the grading is on this. So when you get to 8s and 9s, you have to be careful to look at the card, and again, different topic, but it's why PSA kind of needs to treat all cards really well, because what's a $300 card today can be a $300,000 card a few years from now. But again, so that's how we get here. We get to a point the other night where this is, it sat at $60,000 all week, and we didn't know what it was going to go for. Like amongst the people I know, there was a Jedi a la Kurosawa sale of $100,000. That was a private sale by somebody who has a questionable history. That doesn't mean it wasn't a real sale. It just means when it's not on an auction house and it's done kind of what looks in a performative nature, you have to take it with a grain of salt. And that was $100,000, and that was the previous record sale. Could that have helped this go? Sure. I don't think that collector and this collector are in the same universe. This is a different card altogether, but just different collectors, and a lot of money for both. But this just came down to two people who, like, that's part of what you have to take into account with an auction, is just like, it just takes two people who have a lot of money and want the card, right? And my sensation is that this actually grows the number of people who want the card. This particular card is the card that attracted me to non-sports. It's just an iconic card that I remembered from my childhood. I remembered even when I was collecting when I was younger, I was like, oh, that's a cool card. It just looks cool, and it's really rare. You can look at the actual uncut sheet to see why it is hard to grade, and other reasons. But so we get two people, they go nuts, and you can look, you have a Leia going for 50,000, you have a Han Solo going for almost 50,000. A Grand Moff Tarkin went for, I think, 30-something thousand. And you don't know whether these are set collectors or they are, just the card collectors. They just want the Luke. So you can take this, and so now you can see the path. How we get from 300 to 7,000 is just, that's cards went up. But how we got to 7,000 to 280 or 270,000 isn't that hard to see. Right? This card should have been $100,000 a long time ago. And I actually believe, had it been, this would have gone higher. And I would expect this is the lowest price you'll ever see this card again. It's the low, because, like, I'm pretty sure Aoki's not selling his. And a lot of the other ones are caught up in PSA set registry. This one was actually in a set registry that they broke up, the number 4 set registry. So, that opens it up for new ones. But now I want to give you a sense of like I told you before, there have been an enormous number of these cards graded. The amount of increase in the higher end ones of these hasn't been so. When I started, there were 193 8s, 71 nines and 9 tens. So that's so between eights and eights and nines there were 260. The number is much higher now, but again, we've seen a sevenfold increase in the number of cards. So you have 364 eights. So that has had a big jump. But there are actually more sixes now than there were all graded Lukes. Most of the graded cards that have come in are sevens and below. And what this means for them, what I'm trying to say with this is that there aren't a lot of these good ones out there. When you might see some more eights, you'll see probably some more eights, maybe a couple nines, but this is pretty well capped. You can buy a box out there. I know somebody who pulled open a box and got an 8.5. And then SGC crossed it at a 9.5, but that's a different story for a different day again. So you have this total population of 4,233. I think this total population is gonna go up because like I have raw ones in the other room. I own about 20 copies of this card, with my highest being an 8. And I actually bought another 8 the other night after this auction. I was just like, all right, I don't have enough exposure. I want to get it. But I want to give you a sense of, for comparison. Years ago, for my own thought experiment, I was like, what is the sports card that is most comparable to the Luke Skywalker? I was like, is it the 52 Mantle? Is it the 86 Jordan? What is it? And it's definitely not the 52 Mantle because of how old the mantle is. Those cards are so old. But, the card that I came up with has the closest comparison would be the 1979 Wayne Gretzky. But I want to give you a greater sense. Like I said, now you can ask yourself, is Luke Skywalker more collectible or more popular than Wayne Gretzky? My answer would be yes. Like if you look right now, there are more Star Wars cards being graded than hockey cards. It's just another thought of like, again, we're getting into the part where I'm trying to give you a sense of how we got where we are with the high end. Now, what happens to the rest of this market? And, so let me just, what is this here? Nope, that's not what we're looking for. So, the thing about Wayne Gretzky is that there was the O-Pee-Chees and the Tops. There are O-Pee-Chee Lukes, but I will tell you, they're very rare, and they're also, they're just none out there. Like, obviously, O-Pee-Chee is a Canadian company. They made tons of hockey cards. But you can see here, this is a Tops or O-Pee-Chee. This is Tops. So Tops are worth less than O-Pee-Chees. You have 10,000 of them graded, 110. Obviously, that's rare. 128 nines, 1,200 eights, 2,000 sevens and sixes. So you kind of can see, the grading curve looks similar. Grading distribution looks pretty similar, other than the actual tens, because there's only 110 here. And then if we look at, where is it? This is the O-Pee-Chee. There are 2 O-Pee-Chees, and there are 12,000 graded. The other thing I'll throw at you is that for this card, there are a lot of copies in Beckett and SGC, whereas we can look at the Luke here. This is the gem rate. I apologize. Let me take my big head off the screen here, and we'll get out of here. You can see Luke has a grand total of 6,000 graded. There were 1,000 at SGC, but you can look at SGC. There are, of the 1,000 graded at SGC, there are 295s, 19, 685s, and 26 eights. So there's really no high graded. CGC, I wouldn't count or touch this. CGC graded some of these right away. They misgraded them. Don't touch them. Beckett didn't, you don't want to touch Beckett from this era either for the most part, but even they only have 8 8s, 6 8.5s, and 2 9s, nothing higher. So the population elsewhere, especially in high grade, is inconsequential. Just for argument's sake, I just want to show you what this is Michael Jordan. we'll just to show you an idea of like a total population. Like, it gets complicated with Gretzky because of the idea that there's Topps and OPG. But Michael Jordan has 29,000 with PSA, but he's got another 20,000 with the other grading companies. So there are, it makes this even rarer. But again, you look at, so like my opinion is that the Wayne Gretzky market is comparable to the Luke market, especially when you get away from the 10, right? Because, you know, that's 86 Fleer. You have combined, you have 95 OPGs, 95 Topps, 95 OPGs, and 128 Topps. So both of them have more than there are Luke PSAs. The 10 is a 10. So a Gretzky 10 sells for, like, I think 4 million. But let's see here. What does a Wayne Gretzky PSA 9 sell for? Okay, we have one sale in last for 37,800. Okay, I'm going to bring it to Michael Jordan too. Again, Michael Jordan is the most popular person in the world. It's bar none. It's like this is not about apples to apples. Like Jordan, Luke Skywalker is not apples to apples. Jordan the Wayne Gretzky, I'm telling you, I think is apples to apples. The cards are same era, same producers, same quality type. Okay, so we've got that. A Luke Skywalker, I don't even think they have any PSA. I wonder if they'll have any PSA 9 sales in here. Okay, 4,600, and then this one just sold for 7,725. You can see it's up 100%. But that's, so a Luke 9 is a quarter of a Gretzky. Yet again, this one is the Topps. I don't even know how we get to the OPG, and the OPG is worth more money. So you can see that. But let's go down to an 8, right? And we'll look at some. So 8, $6,000. We go to Luke, go to an 8. Oh, they're up. They're like 1364. This doesn't have all the sales in here, or maybe it does. Well, it doesn't have my sale. That much I can tell you, because none of those data points are my sale. But Luke 8s are 1364. You can't buy one for that price anymore. Everyone that was 1,500 and less have sold. I think the cheapest one available right now is about $2,000. But even still, let's look at the market cap here. Man, my logo is in the way. Let me get rid of my logo. Okay, so the market cap here on the Luke PSA 8 is 491,000. You go over here to Gretzky, it's 7.6 million. And there are Topps and OPG Gretzkys. Right? Like, I mean, I have to see if I can find it. So when I was Wayne Gretzky, let's see if I can. Wayne Gretzky, they have OPG. All right, let's just look at an OPG here. Let's look at an OPG PSA 8. So the PSA 8 market cap on OPG is almost $12 million. So you're talking about combined, they're $20 million. And the Luke PSA market's 500,000. So it's 40 times. And these are similar cards, similar popularity, and similar grade distribution. Not even. You have 369 of these, and then, I apologize, there are 1,248 of the Gretzky Topps and 840 here. So you're talking about something that has, I mean, that contributes to the actual market cap. The more of them there are, and the value actually contributes to the market cap. But the idea is they're less rare, and they're more money. You know, one sells for 12,000. Last sold was 14,000. Average, whatever, 13,000. And then you look at this, his average price was 5,500. And you have Luke selling it 2,000. My point being here is that if people in the card market want exposure to the Luke Skywalker card, this is what drove the price. Like, there are more and more people that want the card, and there just aren't that many of them in high grade. Now, the 5s, the 6s, and the 7s, like, well, let's just go down and look at a 6 here. You know, the six market all over the place, but you can buy, and this is what I think is so cool about it, is this is an incredibly iconic card. You can get a PSA 6 right now, $150. What does a PSA 6 Wayne Gretzky go for? And how many of them are there? Oh, they go for $1,500. They're 10 times the price. Now, you can tell me Wayne Gretzky's more popular. It's sports. It's not non-sports. I'm telling you, they're the same ballpark. 6 million market cap. You know, it's 10 million market cap in sixes. What's the market cap on the sixes here? $147,000. The idea, again, supply shock, pop 2,000. So there are 4,300 of those. There are 824 of these. 5 times the pop. And they're still and they're 10 times the price. Something's got to give, right? Like I'm telling you, I don't think you can get to the pop of the Wayne Gretzky. You can't get. I don't think there are 3,200 Luke sixes out there. So something's got to give. This is my thesis on, like, you can just do it as kind of like, even if you do it as a percentage of the price of, I don't even know where we're going. It's like, if you say, okay, let's leave out the 10s, look at the price of the 9. Even if you look at it a percentage of the price, it still doesn't make sense. Basically, you know, my feeling is, hey, if somebody came up to me and said, what should I do? I'd be like, buy a PSA 8 Luke. Buy a PSA 7 or 8 Luke. And if you're a card collector, it's like, hey, buy a 6. $150 to have an iconic. Look how good this one is. And obviously vintage cards, some cards look more incredible than others. I want to look at 86 Fleer just for a second. I understand. Like, nobody has to tell me that Michael Jordan is the most popular figure in sports history. He is probably eclipsed. Mickey Mantle is the most important in card history. But I just want to give you a sense of how many of them are out there. Like, there are 3,000 nines. So there are, let's just say, between Beckett and PSA, there are 5,000 nines. What does that card sell for? I don't know. What does a PSA 9 Jordan sell for? Now, those are all stickers. We'll go to sold listings here. $28,000. Okay, we have one that's an OC. Again, I'm not drunk, but there are 5,000 of these, and there are 89 Lukes. You see how supply shock works? Right, again, I get the idea that they're not the same person. But where I want to see is, like, let's go down the ladder a little bit. Let's just go and look at, like, what does a Michael Jordan PSA 6 cost? What do they sell for? $6,000. Again, I get it. It's Michael Jordan. So how many of them are there, right? Like, what's the pop on a 6? Okay, we have. There are. Wow, it's weird. There are more 8s than there are 6s. Kind of crazy to me. Yeah, they're relatively rare, but there's still 3,000 of them, right? There are 3,006. I'm actually kind of surprised that there aren't more lower grade. All right, we could even look at 7s. There are 5,000 7s. What does a 7 sell for? Where I'm going with this is that I think that people are going to want to have. We went from a card that nobody cared about to a card that people care about a reasonable amount, and I think it's only growing. If you look at the TCG market, the non-sports card market, they're just picking up momentum. They have more collectors than they ever have, and that they are selecting what cards have value, and they are getting pushed up. And if they're rare, people are going to want them. And also you have people kind of chasing. So again, with the Michael Jordan, the 7s are $7,000. They are whatever it may be. I know the Michael Jordan comparison, it's not that great, but still, again, there are 6,000, 7,000 of them between all grades, whereas with Luke, how many sevens are there? There's 561. So there's a tenth of the number of Lukes, and they cost around 400 bucks. Like, I'm not saying it's going to the Michael Jordan price, but I'm saying these are out of whack. They're not going to be $7,000 anytime soon, but I don't think they're going to be three. They're not going to be 400. They're really 500 bucks now, because you can't buy them below 500 bucks anymore. But I don't know. What is the expectation on the price? So again, I just want to give a sense of what iconic cards sell for, and that, you know, people like, I want a Michael Jordan card in my collection. Like, I can't, like, I don't even like, what does a 4 go for? Because I really would be like, hey, I would like to have just the card. I don't really care like about the grade so much, but like, if you just want to own a Michael Jordan card, a 4 is gonna run you $4,000. These cards are so much more tame. And by the way, it's the same thing with the Gretzky. If we look at the Gretzky here, I don't know if we can do the grade here, if it has the grade, but let's just say you want a PSA 5 Gretzky. Like, what do they run? They're $1,100. $1,000, that's an SGC 5. $1,200. 1,000, 1,000, 1,000, 2,000, right? If you just want to own a half decent copy of an iconic card, it runs you a lot of money. I may be beating this to death. This is just my thesis. I very much thought about going out and buying more and more. I own a decent amount of them. You know, when you own something that goes up, you always say to yourself, oh, why didn't I buy more? And this whole thing could be a fart in a wind. This could have just been two guys who had a lot of money and decided to go against each other in an auction and drive a price up a lot. I don't believe that's the case, because there were a lot of cards that went for a lot of money in these auctions, and there were even, you know, you could go down the line and see more. So I believe this is more likely to be the beginning of something than the kind of a blip and a pop-up on there. I will say that, like, you know, nobody can predict the future. I don't know what the economy is going to do. I don't know how the greater card market's going to do. My feeling is more about relative to the card market. I think these are going to go up, right? Like, I think relative to the cards I just named, the Michael Jordan rookie and the Wayne Gretzky rookie, I think these are going to appreciate or more than them, or they'll actually, like, if those cards go down, they'll go down less, right? That's my feeling. Obviously, I own these, so like, you have to take that with a grain of salt. I don't own either of those other cards. I do own some sports cards. I'm not like, hey, it's all non-sports cards, even though my name is not sports cards. That's because I couldn't get nonsportscards.com. I got notsportscards.com. But yeah, I mean, the last point, and I probably should have made this earlier, is that, like, when I left sports cards to come to non-sports cards, it's a complicated thing of why I did it, about like what's going on in my life, and like some things happened, and I like ended up in sports cards for really about a joy. But what made me kind of like FOMO in and go crazy was these pop reports. And like I said, these pop reports, like, there are only 100,000 total Star Wars cards graded. I mean, that's of the 330 of Series 1, there are only 100,000 graded. There's 50,000 Michael Jordan rookies graded. I'm not, again, it's not, but like, if you look at the pop count of like, go look at another card you compare it to is like, or if you want to even be on the bad side, go look at a 1980 Ricky Henderson card. Let's do it for a second. Let's do it. But it's the pop counts. 1980 Ricky Henderson, right? They're sold. What does a 9 sell for? 9 sell for $2,000. Okay, well, that's less than a than a Luke for sure. But how many of them are there? They have the. Oh, there's 2,000 of them, right? So this sells for $2,000, and there are uh, what you call it, 25 times as many of these as there are Lukes. So if you just extrapolate it, is Luke on the level of Ricky Henderson? Yeah, I think so. So you want to extrapolate out 25 times. Again, I looked all over the place for these different comparisons, and they don't really exist where you see a grading. It's why I use the Gretzky. It's the only thing that has this kind of grading curve of there are some tens, there are some nines, there are some eights, but it just kind of like you don't get this highly graded things. And when you compare them to the numbers, like we're just saying, there are 2,000 Ricky Henderson nines. They're not 2,000 Princess Leia cards graded. They're 1,700, and they're only 115 nines. And you can buy one of those for $4,000. Is that worth more than Ricky Henderson? I think it probably is. How about a Darth Vader? Only 66 nines. Like, there are barely 308 and above Darth Vaders. Darth Vader, something you might be interested in? I don't know. These pop reports are what drove me to it. And if you, like I said, if you think that, hey, people have these in drawers and they have boxes and they will grade well, I think you're out of your mind, because I've seen the population. Like, yes, there have been 16 new Darth Vader nines, 110, and of 1,000 cards. So maybe you'll get some more of the high grades. But that I actually believe most of the stuff that's been in high grade has already been graded. Um, that's my opinion. Like R2D2, there have been 26. There have been almost as many new Vaders as there are R2D2 nines. Like, it just, these cards in high grade don't exist. I've graded them. I have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of these cards. They just, to get an 8 or a 9 is just practically impossible if they weren't kept amazingly. And most of those cards have been purchased and graded. There aren't a lot of them left. These pop counts are nuts. They're just nuts low. Like, again, you have four. I think all these cards will get up to, like, everybody graded their Lukes. There are still Lukes out there that aren't graded, but almost all of them are in this range. They're in the 3, 4, 5, 6 range. Like, the stratification is, but I think you're going to see more like 9 layers and 8 layers. Yeah, I do. But you can see, like, Luke is so hard to grade that, only less than half as many layers have been graded, but there are more Leia 8s. It's just, the Luke is extremely hard to grade. It's extremely hard to grade and to get a high grade. Even if it's been kept in pristine condition, they were just not cut right. The ink didn't settle right. The registry, the lines wouldn't line up. There were so many things that could go wrong with these cards to make them not be high grade. That's why they're 268,000 for a 10. And I think that the trickle down part hasn't happened yet, right? You have the 268,000, which I think is the lowest sale you're going to see. I'm not going to say I'd be surprised you'll see another one in the next 2 years. You might see one. Like, I think in the next 7 years, you're going to see 3. Like, they're not good. They're not there to sell, right? Like, these people that own them, they're not poor, and they bought them because they like the cards. A lot of them aren't buying them as investments. They're not going to be out there. And even the 9s, they're not out there. I think I'm hammering it home a little bit too much, but I'm trying to give you the 4 or 5 years of knowledge that I have in this industry to say, or this market to say, to explain to you why these cards are going up and why there is a plausible scenario where they go straight up, because there's just not a lot of them out there. And yeah, I mean, I was in the market when it went through FOMO in 2021, and there was no inventory. And then we got more inventory because people were able to grade it. I don't think we get that this time. There just aren't any cards left to grade, like in high condition. And I think that there are more card collectors than there are cards here. And yeah, like I said, if somebody asks me what they should buy, and they do. I say get it if you can afford a PSA 8 Luke. That's what I'd buy. It's what I just bought. I would stick to Luke, Leia, Han. Like that's another piece that I could give you. Luke, Leia, Han, Kenobi. Like the hierarchy is Luke, Leia, and Vader and Leia are now on the same level, except Vader's hard to get, but Leia is more popular. Han right after, and then there's a drop off R2D2, Kenobi. But I would stick mostly to the character cards. If you buy the card, you like it, and you want to collect the whole set, fantastic. I'm not a set collector. I've had a chance to make sets of these many times. I probably own most of the series one in 8 or above, but I don't want a set. It's just not what I collect. But I've seen it. Like the market goes up and down, but the character cards are kind of what holds value. You can get deals on some cool of these other ones, but this card here, I'm of the opinion that it is an iconic card of age. It marries nostalgia of the people who have money right now and enjoy card collecting in a way that almost no other card can. And yeah, so that's my story. I'm not going to go on to it. I'm going to do other videos where I actually talk about some of the other cards, some of the other sales, some ideas about like some of the sealed products out there. That's another thing that I think, and also some of the sales we've seen. I do a Star Wars card market update, usually about once a month. I'll do one soon. The amount of it's not surprising that a lot of stuff is being purchased right now. Some people are FOMOing in, and some people are like, hey, I've been putting off buying. I've always wanted an R2D2 9, and I better pick one up now before they go up. And it's like, yeah, they might go down a little bit, but hey, it's a good time to buy. So I'll go through all of what kind of the sales I'm seeing. There have been a lot. And then I'll go through kind of some of the other cards. But I wanted to focus on this one because this particular card had that history of it should have been more money. And circumstances conspired to make it not be worth the money that it should have been. And then we finally get a situation where the auction is run right. I don't even think it was that well promoted, to be honest. I think the next time one of these goes up, it'll be extremely well promoted. So you know why we didn't get here sooner. You know why I think we're going significantly higher. It doesn't matter to me. I don't own this card in this grade. I like this card could go to 5 million. It'll affect the other cards, but not the same thing. Do I think this card's going to 5 million? No, I think the next sale will be probably triple this. I don't know if it'll go directly to 1 million, but I would expect over 500,000, closer to like 700,000-800,000. And then after that, I would expect them never to go for less than $1 million again. So I would say, that's a long time, but this decade, this card sells for $1 million. That's my opinion. If the card market doesn't go to hell, card market goes to hell, you can pin this. I will say this. This card will never sell less than a Michael Jordan Fleer rookie again. Whatever the Jordan rookie is at the time, this card will always be worth more money. Take that. Think about that. I'm not sports cards. I'm out.